Welcome to the Mr. Pictures channel. Today I'm going to bring an epic Star Wars crossover along with the intergalactic adventures of Donald Duck. Something really crazy is going to come out of here. What mysteries await us? So grab the popcorn, sit on the chair, or lie down on the bed and enjoy this adventure. Without further ado, let's get to the point. The call to adventure. Space was vast and mysterious, full of dangers and wonders. In the middle of this immensity, a small yellow ship snaked between asteroids and twinkling stars. Inside it, the pilot was none other than Donald Duck, wearing a blue spacesuit with a golden lightning-shaped emblem on his chest. "Why do I always have to do these things?" he grumbled, fiddling with the navigation controls. Donald was not an intergalactic adventurer by choice. He was on this journey because the Council of Realms had summoned him. The threat was serious. An ancient prophecy spoke about the amulets of time, powerful artifacts that maintained order between the worlds. But now, they were missing, and without them, chaos would spread across the Disney kingdoms and beyond. Himself, Master Yoda, in a holographic appearance, had entrusted the mission to Donald. "It will be your responsibility, but you will face a great challenge. You must have confidence in yourself." Now, Donald headed to the planet Incori, a dark and inhospitable world where the first amulet was hidden. He had no idea that this journey would change his destiny forever. The ruin of Korriban. Donald's ship landed gently amid the ancient ruins of a Sith temple. The place was dark and full of statues of menacing figures. He held a holographic map that indicated the first amulet of time was hidden within the temple catacombs. "Okay, Donald, just take the amulet and get out of here quickly without any trouble." But as soon as he took the first step inside the temple, laughter echoed through the walls. "Donald, Donald, we finally meet." He turned sharply. At the top of one of the columns was Hades, the Lord of the Underworld. "You? What are you doing here?" Donald asked, already knowing that good things weren't coming from there. Hades smiled devilishly. "Ah, my little duck, those time amulets. I want them, too, and honestly, you're making my job easier by finding them for me." Suddenly, shadows began to materialize around Donald. Horrific creatures with red eyes appeared, wielding energy weapons. He was surrounded. Donald drew his magic staff and conjured, a sphere of energy preparing to fight, but before he could attack, a sound cut through the air. Psst. A round ship landed with speed, and from inside it, a small figure jumped out. Grog. The small green being raised his hand, and a wave of the Force swept over the enemies, throwing them away. Donald gaped. "Hey, little guy, you know how to make a grand entrance." Grogu smiled slightly and gestured for Donald to follow him. They still had an amulet to find, and an entire galaxy to save. Arrival of the Dark Disciples. Donald and Grogu ran through the dark temple of Korriban, past broken columns, and blue torches that lit the passage. The little Jedi used the Force to clear a path, moving fallen rocks and dodging hidden traps. Donald, on the other hand, tried to keep up, mumbling, "This would be so much easier if I didn't have to run all the time." Grogu just looked at him and blinked as if to say, "You get used to it." But what they didn't know was that they were being watched. In the shadows above the temple, 3 hooded figures watched the pair. They were the disciples of Vader, warriors who followed the dark teachings of the ancient Sith Lord. Each of them wore a black suit and carried red lightsabers. The leader, known as Darth Revenant, smiled under his black helmet. So this is the famous Grogu, and that annoying duck who is said to have the power of magic. This is going to be interesting. With a gesture, he ordered his subordinates to attack. The battle at the Lost Temple. Donald and Grogu arrived at an ancient chamber where the former, Amulet of Time, floated on a pedestal. It glowed with golden light and emitted a strange energy. Donald reached out to pick it up, but before he could touch it, an ominous buzzing filled the air. Psh! 3 red lightsabers lit up around them. Vader's disciples had arrived. "Good morning, heroes." Darth Revenant descended the chamber stairs, his double saber spinning in the air. "The Dark Lord sends his regards." Donald's eyes widened. "Ah, great. More people wanting to kill me." The other 2 disciples advanced. Grogu raised his hands and used the Force to block one of them attack, while Donald, without many options, launched a magic ray of your staff against the second enemy. Impact made the temple walls shake. The battle had begun. The siege of the Lost Temple. The glow of red lightsabers illuminated the stone walls of the temple, casting frightening shadows as Vader's 3 disciples approached. The leader, Darth Revenant, he twirled his double saber with precision, his eyes hidden beneath his black helmet. Donald swallowed, gripping his magic staff tightly. Do you have a plan, Grogu?" The little Jedi looked at him and blinked, but before he could respond, one of the disciples, Lady Malva, he advanced with superhuman speed, slashing the air with his scarlet blade. Donald barely had time to react. He raised his staff and conjured a magical barrier, but the force of the impact threw him backwards, crashing into a column. "Ah! I hate that kind of thing." Grogu in turn extended his hands and used the Force to block the second disciples. "Attack, Core Tanos," deflecting his saber with a telekinetic push. Darth Revenant watched everything with his arms crossed. "You have courage, but you don't have a chance." Donald stood up, irritated. "Oh yeah? Well, I didn't start." He swung his staff in the air and fired a blast of blue energy, aiming for his enemy's feet. The ground froze instantly, catching Lady Malva and Core by surprise. They slipped, losing their balance for a moment. Grogu took advantage of the distraction and made a movement with his hands. The stones on the roof began to shake, and pieces of the structure began to fall. Revenant realized the trick and jumped back. Impressive, but useless. He raised his hand and strangled the air. Donald felt his body being pulled by his neck. "Ache!" "Hey, that doesn't count!" Grogu frowned and reached out, breaking Revenant's hold with the Force. Donald fell to the ground, panting. And, cuff, now I'm mad. The impossible strategy. Donald and Grogu were trapped. Vader's disciples were too powerful for a direct fight. They needed a strategy. Donald whispered to Grogu as the enemies regrouped. "Look, little boy, I'm a master of escape. If we can distract them, we can take that amulet and get out." Grogu nodded. Donald thought for a moment. "We have to use the scenario to our advantage. If we knock down more of these columns, we can separate them." The little Jedi closed his eyes and, with a movement of his hand, made the camera shake. Several columns began to crack. Revenant narrowed his eyes. Little Jedi wants to play. "With the Force," Donald shouted. "Then how about some magic also?" He pointed his staff and launched an explosive spell at one of the central columns. The impact was so strong that the structure collapsed, raising a cloud of dust. Lady Malva and Core were separated from Revenant, becoming trapped on the other side of the room. Donald wasted no time. He ran to the pedestal where the amulet of time floated and grabbed it. "Yes! We caught one!" But Revenant was already in front of him, his saber alight. "Do you think you can just take this and walk away?" Donald smiled nervously. "Yes, there is." Revenant charged forward with a swift strike. Grogu, at the last second, used the Force to pull Donald back and at the same time raised his hand to temporarily paralyze Revenant in midair. Donald fell backwards onto the ground, holding the amulet. He looked at Grogu and smiled. "You're amazing, you know that? Now let's get out of here! Escape to another galaxy." Donald and Grogu ran back to the temple entrance. Vader's disciples were recovering. "The ship! We have to get to the ship!" Donald shouted. The enemies tried to follow them, but the debris and dust from the temple gave the duo the advantage. Once they reached the exit, Donald pressed a button on his suit. "Galactic Patrol, bring the ship. Now." Donald's yellow ship descended from the heavens and hovered over the temple. The boarding ramp opened, and the two jumped inside. Donald quickly took over the controls. "Now, let's get out of here before that guy turns me into a duck pate." Revenant and his disciples exited the temple in time to see the ship rocketing into the heavens. He clenched his fists. This isn't over yet. Inside the ship, Donald sighed, looking at the golden amulet in his hands. All right, one is gone, but we still have more to find. Grogu looked at him and smiled as if to say, "The journey is just beginning." Donald took a deep breath and programmed the coordinates for the next destination. A galaxy of Endor awaited them. Continue. And that's our story today. Comment here. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.